Hello, welcome back. Now that my dance pad is fully built and working, this series is basically done, but I wanted to do one more thing to wrap it up. I want to go through all of the pieces that went into the pad and where I got them and how much they cost. So, this is going to be kind of a photo slideshow. I'll provide a few links in the description. I won't have everything in there. I'm still planning to get a website up for this thing with all of the information and schematics on there, but it just hasn't happened yet. It will eventually. I don't know when, but sometime. Anyway, so let's start with the basic hardware. This is just the simple wood and metal and stuff that I can just get at pretty much any hardware store, I assume. I bought all of these pieces from Lowe's. Starting with a plywood sheet. This is kind of goes sort of bottom to top, roughly. So a plywood sheet, 4 foot by 8 foot. I opted for the second most expensive plywood that Lowe's had. There was one grade above that was like for furniture, like exposed parts of furniture. I don't know. It was a little nicer than what I needed, but I wanted to go with reasonably high grade stuff. So for that 4 foot by 8 foot piece, it cost me $57.97. I cut it into the 2 base plates for both pads. The stationary panels, 10 of these go where the arrows are not, and all of the edge finish that went around the edges. So let's see, the back piece, the corner, inner side piece, outer side piece. That one's a little bit, or sorry, wait. No, this one's the front, sorry. So front, inner, which is the longest one, outer, which is slightly shorter because it has the corner cut out. And this also goes into the back cover that goes over where the bar is mounted. And little piece for the front cover just so that that gets elevated to the appropriate height. So that's how the plywood got cut down. Then there were a whole bunch of 2x3s, just basic lumber. I bought 12 8-foot lengths of these. It turned out I only actually needed 10. I have 2 extras, so 10 was enough. For the 12 that I bought, I paid $25.80. So I cut these for, let's see, back horizontal, center vertical, frame corner, horizontal inner, horizontal outer, inner vertical, outer vertical, short horizontal. Yeah, so all those frame pieces. See the other videos for how those exactly go together. Sheet of sheet metal, 24 inches by 48 inches. So this was 26 gauge zinc plated steel, although I also accidentally bought aluminum. I talked about that earlier. Anyway, so this is, I bought 2 of these for $59.84 total. I actually had to buy a bunch more of those, but if I hadn't made any mistakes, I would have paid that much and only needed 2 of them. Those got trimmed down into all those little pieces. This one goes in the center of the back cover. That's the inner part of the back cover where the 2 pads meet. That's the outer part where the corner cutout is. This one goes over the front plate, or over the front cover rather. It's a plate that goes over the front cover. Those 4 go on the sides, left and right of each pad, so there are 2 next to each other on the inner portion. Very thin little things, kind of hard to work with those. And then, of course, 10 to go around the stationary panels. So those just wrap around like this. This is one of my test wraps. Sorry, this isn't one of my tests. This is one of the real ones. The screws changed out for countersunk ones once I actually got the countersink bit in there. And that's the metal. So then I had a couple of sheets of thinner plywood. I forget the exact thickness of this. It was like 1/8 of an inch or so, somewhere around there. These were used for the panel risers, the front and back cover risers, and I guess that's it. Yeah, so those were just used for those things to elevate those to the appropriate height. And then... Right, sorry, it cost me $9.16 for the 2 of those that I needed. They were both 2x2 sheets. Then I got one more larger 2 foot by 4 foot sheet of slightly thinner, different plywood that was exactly the right thickness for the corner stoppers, and cut it down for that. This also came in handy for shimming my edge finish when nothing would fit, and I found a few other uses for it. So even though I had a bunch of extra, because the corner stoppers didn't take that much, it was good that I had more than I needed. Yeah, so for a lot of these things, it was a good thing that I bought more than I needed. I tried to for most of these, unless it was, something expensive or I knew for sure exactly how much I needed. Having a little bit of slop so I can mess up and not have to order more if I waste a piece somehow was very helpful. Anyway, so that was all of the really basic building materials, 158.46 altogether. So that's the basic stuff. Now moving on to Dance Machine specific hardware, the more specialized stuff that's a little harder to get, and a lot of this I had to get online. So here is an uncut piece of the polycarbonate sheet that I got from Tap Plastics was the name of the website. So this is a 10.75 by 10.75 by half-inch thick polycarbonate sheet. This is the actual aero panel. And I cut all the corners off. I have that. That's like one of the first things I put up for this. And it looks like that. So for 8 of those, it was $191.28 plus $27.38 shipping. So those were a decent amount of the price. But it's worth spending money on those because I don't want them to break. You saw with my Blue Shark pad, if you've been following for a while, that the 2 of those panels actually broke because they were made of cheaper, less durable stuff. This should hypothetically last forever. That remains to be seen, though. So, aero decals. Those go on the bottom of the aero panels and make them look all nice. I got these from a place called bannerbuzz.com, which was recommended by a website I'll be giving special thanks to at the end of this. Now, the artwork that I put on this was official Rockstar Games artwork that was produced for people who want to put decals onto Cobalt Flux pads. I don't know where I got it exactly. I just sort of had it on my hard drive. I just kind of found it. Like from, 10 years ago when I was much more active in dance game communities. Like, I assume this was posted to the Cobalt Flux forums once long ago when those actually existed. And I just saved it all this time. I found something very similar online. I think it might be the same artwork source. It's at least similar enough that you couldn't really tell a difference, so I'll put a link to that in the description. And of course, the source files that I used for printing this will also be hosted on the website for this pad once I actually get around to putting that up. So in addition to those decals, I also needed some... wait, I haven't been giving prices for this. Right, okay, so the decals that I printed there were $25.67 for a 44-inch by 22-inch sheet that got cut down into the 8 panels that actually went onto the thing. Then shipping for that was $9.95. From Amazon, I got this white vinyl stuff that went on the back and made it opaque and white because the Banner Buzz banner was actually transparent, so this was another necessary piece. So $9.80 for that. This is what it looks like applied. You've seen these before, but maybe not in this much detail. Anyway, so then getting on to some other stuff. The Pump It Up bars that I'm using. These are official Pump It Up bars. I got them from arcadespareparts.com. It was $198 for the 2 of them, so $99 each. Those were a little pricey, but for that big chunk of metal that's bent that very specific way, that's actually not too bad, really. I'm glad I was able to find this. So, funny thing about this, I noticed that the page where I bought these has them listed as out of stock and has ever since I ordered this. So I think I got like the last 2 that place had. And I'm not actually sure where you would go to get more other than that. So I don't know, maybe I got the last 2 in the world that are available. Because like if I'm providing all this information just in case somebody else wants to attempt this project and build their own, but this is a part that apparently I can't help with because like maybe you could email them and see if they're back in stock. Or if you wanted to do some sort of custom metal bending, the dimensions that I have are 16.25 inches horizontally between the ends of the bar, 39.75 inches total height, 1.5 inch inner diameter for the the overall pipe that's used. And then just shape it however you want. One thing that I find a little bit annoying about these is that they're asymmetrical. Or sorry, well, they're asymmetrical from the point of view of just one half of the pad. Like, if I'm on the player 1 pad, it sticks way out to my left. If I'm on the player 2 pad, it sticks way out to my right, and it's kind of uncomfortable. I'd rather have it centered. I thought about making some sort of provision to do that, like moving the bracket inward somehow so that that particular shape would end up centered over the arrow panels, but that just didn't quite work with the design. So I would have preferred a centered version of this. Anyway, so the triangle brackets that hold the arrow panels down, I got these also as part of the same order from arcadespareparts.com. I think these are still available. These are official DDR triangle brackets, so you'll find these in DDR arcade machines. It was $57.60 for 32 of them. They came with these little round-head DDR screws. I opted to replace those with these different hex cap screws that I got off. These were a little hard to find. The only place I could find to buy them, they came from China somewhere. I got these off of some random merchant on eBay. I have a link to it. I assume it's still up. I didn't actually check before I started recording this. But like, you can find these. It's M6 1.0 is the dimension of threading. These are 25 millimeters long, I think. 20 millimeters works fine too. I think I got that right. They might be slightly shorter. I'm not sure if I'm remembering my numbers correctly. It's something like that, though. So then the leg levelers, the things that go on the very bottom, these are, again, official DDR leg levelers. I got these from Betson.com, which is I believe it's the East Coast DDR arcade machine supplier. I had decided, or I had gotten the impression early on in this project that I couldn't just order directly from them, but late in the project, when this was one of the last pieces I needed to track down, I just went there and found they have an order for them. You can just put in an order and have them ship you parts, and it's no problem. There were a bunch of other sites that were sources for this sort of thing where you had to email them. There was a minimum order amount. Oh, sorry. Okay, it was a lot of work to organize all this, and I'm still not perfectly organized. The hex cap screws were $50.98 for a pack of 100. Hypothetically, I only needed 64, but it's nice to have some extras if they get stripped or whatever. One of them has already gotten stripped, and I've had to replace it, so it's good to have extras. Anyway, right, sorry, the leg levelers. These were $53.28 from Betson for 8 of them, and $18.77 shipping. So total of those specialized dance machine hardware stuff. Wait, I'm missing something here. Okay, so the Pump It Up bars. Where's this in my notes? It's got to be here somewhere. Here we go. So arcade spare parts. When I ordered the Pump It Up bars and triangle brackets and also the sensors, I'll get to those in the electronics section next. There was let's see, there was a wire transaction fee, there was a bunch of shipping and handling, there was a forwarding fee from Ondamiro for the bars themselves, so yeah, I guess those cost a little bit more. I think it was $100 extra from that. Oh, so those were like $150 each. Anyway, so that added another $225 to the cost, just altogether with shipping and handling and fees and things. So altogether, the specialized dance machine parts cost me $822.91. I'll assume that I'm editing in running cost total on screen here somewhere. At the end of this, I'll have some ideas for how to save costs, because yeah, you might realize these are going up pretty quickly. Anyway, so on to electronics. The sensors. Very important components. Don't want to cheap out on these. These also came from the same arcade spare parts order. These are, I think, not quite official Pump It Up sensors. They're like a sort of semi-knockoff replica, but they work just fine. Like they're the same thing. They're just not made by Ondamiro. I'm not sure exactly who makes them, but they've been working really well so far. So yeah, just rubber things with padding and wires inside them, and step on them and they make the connection between the things, and that's how the whole thing works. Those cost $288 for 32 of them. You could skimp on some of these, like you don't really need the outermost one on each arrow, except for the player 1 right arrow and the player 2 left arrow, so you could save 6 that way by skipping those. Or you could cut it down further and only do the innermost sensor on each arrow. If you only want to play single mode and you always step on the inside, that's the most important one. But I wanted 4 sensors per arrow to match the arcade pad layout. The connector that, or the connector housing that mates with the connector that came on the sensors. This came from ITG2.com, which is where most of these little connector housings and pins and things came from. This cost me $14.64 for 35 of them. I got 3 extras just in case I messed up. And those needed some, right, they connect to the sensors like that. Those needed pins to be purchased separately and installed. You saw how much of a pain that was for me to do until I got the crimper tool. Those came on a big strip that looks like this. And they cost me $5.21 for 80 of them. I got a few extras. That same pin was also used in the interconnect. I'll get to that in a moment. The UHID, okay, right, hang on, I have a couple more photos here. So that's what the pin looks like up close. Wire goes inside it, then the pin goes inside the housing, but it has to be bent because it doesn't fit in just like that. Anyway, the UHID, this is the device that translates that interfaces between the simple wires that go to the sensors and LEDs and an actual USB cable. This came from ultimark.com and cost me $69. There's a nano version that has, I think, only one of these 9-pin connections on it. It would work for a single pad or one without LEDs, but I needed the larger version for the double pad with LEDs, because I needed 2 connections on it total. The nano version is a little cheaper. I think it's like $30, $40, somewhere around there. Anyway, the interconnect, the thing that joins the player 1 pad to the player 2 pad. Here's the male housing for it. It cost me 47 cents from DigiKey. Female housing cost 73 cents. Those 2 things mate together like that. And of course they get pins in them. Like I mentioned, the pins that were used for the sensor connectors also went into the female housing. These are the female pins that go into the male housing. They're a little different. They mate with the male pins, which are there, just like that. Those cost me 87 cents for the 10 of them. I did not get any extras of those, and I messed up one a little bit and had to kind of improvise. I should have bought extra. LEDs from superbrightleds.com. These are cool white, I forget their exact specs, but they're pretty bright. I accidentally bought way more than I needed. I got 35 of them, thinking for some reason that I needed 32 and I'd get a few extra. I only needed 8 of these. Anyway, so for the 35 that I bought, I paid $31.15. LED lenses, these little caps that go on top to increase their viewing angle a little bit. I only bought 10 of these because I realized how many I needed by the time I ordered them. They cost me $2.90. Those are pretty cheap. 56 ohm resistor. This is just necessary for wiring up the LEDs. I once again bought 35 of them because I didn't realize how many I actually needed. These only cost $4.55. And the mini breadboard where all of this stuff is mounted. These came in packs of 7, annoyingly. Annoyingly because I needed exactly 8. So I just bought 14 of them. These came off of Amazon somewhere. It cost me, where is it? $17.36. The UHID modular harness. So that connects to the pins on that, and basically you clip it in half, then strip off the wires, then wire them into whatever system you want to interface with the UHID. This cost $11. Also came from Ultimark, of course. And looks like that. The filled-in pin there is the one where there's no pin on the UHID. The one at the end is the common signal. The other 8 are the other stuff. I didn't explain that very well, but I did a bunch of videos on wiring, so you should know what's going on if you watch those. So to actually wire everything together, I got this box of 22 gauge hookup wire, 25 feet per each of the 10 colors. I needed exactly 10 colors, so this was exactly what I needed. I didn't use the whole box. I have enough to maybe wire up 1 or 2 more of these pads, or another project of similar size. But it's better to have more than you need than not have enough. This box cost me $39.03. Wow, that's a little pricey just for wire, but I guess wire's expensive. And then, right, so this thing has all those little holes in the top are for poking the end of each spool of wire through. Then you can just keep the lid closed and pull out wire when you need it. It didn't work perfectly. The spools kind of got caught up on stuff, and I sometimes had to open the thing and untangle them. But it worked okay for most of it. And then the USB cable. I didn't get a photo of this on its own, but here's the best video grab I could find. That's just some random mini USB to USB cable, 8 feet. Got it off of Amazon for $6.99. And just miscellaneous shipping costs for all that stuff that I bought. I didn't break it out separately. All that stuff totaled up to $64.13. So the electronics in total cost me $556.03. So, moving on to the machine shop parts. Here's where about half of the cost is. These were super expensive. These were manufactured by a local machine shop. Kreider Machine Shop is the name of the place in Harrisonburg, Virginia. They were very helpful. They were capable of doing exactly what I needed them to. It took them a little while and, again, cost a lot of money, but they did it. So this is the handle joint bracket. That's what attaches to the frame, and the bar attaches to it. 2 of these cost me $163.22. This is a part that I think you couldn't really do anything to cheap out on that. It's just going to be a big, expensive hunk of metal that has to be made this very specific way. This is one of the trickiest parts, one of the ones I was worried most about, but fortunately the machine shop was able to make it for me. That's what it looks like with the bar mounted onto it. When these photos were taken, I had to do a little bit of work on that to file down the bar to be able to fit the screws in. Anyway, the frame joint bracket. This joins the 2 pads together in the front and the back. 2 of these cost me $49.80. They're pretty simple. Just basically a rectangle of metal with a small bend on one end to keep it sort of rigid. Like, that bend keeps it from bending inward or outward, if you see what I mean. And just a couple of holes cut in it for the bolts to go through. So the sensor brackets. Kind of actually very similar to the frame joint brackets, but they're smaller and there are a whole lot more of them. These cost me $381.44 for 36 of them. I requested 32 and they gave me 36, so I guess I got 4 freebies. I don't know why. Maybe they messed up on a few. Maybe they misunderstood my email or something. Maybe, I don't know. I just got 4 extras somehow. This is a part that some of the online retailers, which were more of a pain to order from, supposedly carried for dance machines. I couldn't... Arcade Spare Parts didn't have them, I think... And none of the other places, I couldn't meet the minimum order amount. They were like $200 minimums on CoinOp Express and what's that other place called? There's another one. I forget the name of it, but there's another big one that's well known. You have to email them to order. It's a $200 minimum. I couldn't meet the minimum with stuff I wanted to buy. I could have bought sensor brackets from them, but I would have had to add something else to the order, and there was nothing else I needed. So I just had the machine shop make them. Then the triangle bracket mounts. This little bracket that the triangle bracket connects to, this is apparently the most complicated piece. I needed 32 of them, and the total cost for this was $960.32 for the 32 of those. That was the largest single cost of anything that went into this pad. Like, I get it. They have to be welded on the inside. They had 2 tapped holes in the inside on the top, and then that other hole drilled out of the top and bottom. It's a complicated piece, but like, that's kind of a crazy cost. I think that's where the largest cost saving would be available, if you could come up with an alternative for those pieces. If I could have come up with an alternative for those pieces. Assuming you're taking on this project yourself. You probably don't want to do exactly what I did with these. But I decided to just do it. Just take the cost and see how well they work. And those do work pretty well. I do regret a little bit some of the stuff I did with the design. Having only one screw hole in the bottom was not great because no matter how tightly I fasten that screw, they still can sort of rotate around just a little bit because it's only one point of contact. I would rather somehow have it fastened by 2 screws or something more. Apparently in real DDR machines, these are actually part of a larger metal piece. Like they're all four per arrow panel are part of one switch frame that sort of has a metal piece that goes all the way around, and the sensors also sit on that. That would have been more complicated and probably more expensive even still, but it would have been nice to have for this. Anyway, so right, machine shop total cost was $1,637.18. So expensive stuff there. Metal is pricey, especially when shaped like that. So on to screws and fasteners. Most of these I just bought from Lowe's. There were a few specialty things like the threaded inserts that I had to get online. But this was just a bunch of little tiny pieces that are mostly readily available. So wood screw, 2 inches. Wood screw number 8, 1.5 inches. Sorry, right, I can go over these in more detail. The 2-inch wood screw, 198 of them went into the frame, 64 of them went into the edge finish, and 40 of them hold the stationary panels in place. So a whole lot of these were used, more than any other screw that I bought here. The 1.5-inch wood screws were used for, I needed just a few of them, for the part of the frame that, 8 of them went into the frame where the center vertical cutout was, where the handle joint bracket went over. Hopefully you know what I'm talking about. It's a little hard to describe. If you watch my other videos, you should recognize those terms. And the diagonal edge finish also got a few of these, 8 of them. I put all these costs together, so I'll go over them once I get through these basic screws. So, number 10 metal screws, 1.5 inches. These were used for attaching the triangle bracket mounts to the frame. So they're the single screw that I was talking about before that attaches those metal pieces to the stuff below it. Number 10 washers. I got 2 packs of 2 packs of 100. Yeah, I can see it right there. I used 128 of them, so it was 4 per triangle bracket mount because I needed the 1 in the hole to let the screw get any grip. 1 directly below that, and then 2 on the sides for elevation. You don't necessarily have to use washers for that, but they're what I had on hand. They're what made sense. If I had spec'd those parts to the appropriate height, I wouldn't have needed the extra elevation. But that's just what happened, so I used the washers for that. And number 8 by 1.5 metal screws. 64 of those were used to attach the metal finish. And number 4, 1/2-inch metal screws, tiny little things. 4 of those attached the UHID to the base plate. So all of those basic screws together cost me $64.12. Machine screws, number 8, 32 by 1/2 an inch. 96 of those attach the sensor brackets to the frame. In addition, these number 8 washers, 96 of those also go into the sensor brackets. I also used a few of them for triangle bracket mount elevation, where the number 10 washers were too thick. It took a little bit of improvising, but that wasn't their primary use. These were specifically for the sensor brackets. And then these little tiny aluminum spacers also went into that same construct, so 96 of those. These came from aluminumspacers.com, which I guess you can see on the label there. They cost $16 for the 100 of them. That cost is included in the number I'm going to give for all these machine screw things. These little screws were used to attach the bar to the handle joint bracket, and the nuts went on the other side of them. Those were M6 because that's the tap that I selected for those. I mentioned before it would have been better just to put a bolt through an untapped hole in the handle joint bracket and attach it with a nut on the other side, but I didn't do that. Anyway, so all those machine screw things were $36.08. Bolts. This is a 1-inch bolt. 16 of those attach the frame joint bracket to the frame. 1.5 inches. 8 of those go into the handle joint bracket, and then 2.5 inches. Actually, I think those were 1.25 inches. Anyway, something like that. 2.5 inches, 8 of those go into the handle joint bracket. They're the longer ones that go through the frame. The shorter ones just go through the bracket and the base plate. Nuts here. 16 of them go on the bottom of the handle joint bracket to anchor it on the bottom. And then 16 of these washers for the frame joint bracket, and 32 of them for the handle joint bracket, top and bottom for those. So that was $17.40 for those bolts and washers. And nuts. Now these threaded inserts, I couldn't get these at Lowe's. These had to be ordered online from specialty places. The number 8 ones were used for the sensor brackets, 96 of them, of course. These came from nutty.com. Now, the 3/8 ones here, that's the size of them, right? The ones that are used for the frame joint bracket bolts. For some reason, I didn't get a good photo of them, so I just took the best 2 video grabs I could find. They look kind of like the little ones you just saw for the sensor brackets, just bigger, basically. This one did the frame there, as you can see in the video frame I'm showing. These also came from nutty.com. And then the big ones used for the leg levelers. These were from Zorro.com, different place. These were a little hard to find. They're M16 thread, M16 2.0, so really big things. They're made from metal, but they worked fine in wood. And right, the threaded inserts altogether sent me back $115.97. The sensor bracket ones were the expensive ones because they were the most numerous. I needed 96 of them. So the total of screws and fasteners altogether was $233.57. So then just a few more parts, miscellaneous. These dowel pins were used to hold the sensors in place. They cost me $5.94 for 3 packs of 26. I needed, 64 of them? Yeah, 64 of them. I got these from Lowe's. And this foam sheet, very important component, very inexpensive. I got this from Michael's, which is an arts and crafts store, for $1, or 99 cents, I guess, is the exact price. I think one of them was enough to cut out all the little foam padding that I put onto the sensor brackets, and also the corner stoppers. So that's where that came from. So yeah, just cheap little component, but very crucial. And the wire tacks. Those little things, these came from Lowe's. Those were just used to hold wires in place. Those cost $1.30 for this pack of... It was sold by weight, 1.5 ounces. I counted 188 in that pack, I believe. Yeah, 188, yep. I only needed 30 of them or so. And then spray paint. I only have a picture of the black spray paint, but I also had a can of red and white, which were used for various things for painting the... the frame joint bracket pictures I showed earlier were unpainted, but I painted that thing black. Then the edge finish got painted red. I guess that was unpainted too in the photo I took. And the arrow wells got painted white. So that was $3.98 for each can of spray paint, so that was 3 of them. Total miscellaneous was $20.17. Now, I had a bunch of unused, I bought a bunch of other parts that didn't end up going into the pad, and also had to buy some tools for this to put it all together. I don't have records and photos for all of those, but it was about $500 or so of basically either wasted money or overhead or tools that I needed to get just to put this all together. So the total cost of everything that went into the pad that I actually used was $3,428.32. Including the tools and unused parts brings it up to close to $4,000. So this was a pricey project. That number went up since last time I calculated it. I thought I was sitting at around $3,000 for the pad total, but looks like it had gone up a bit. The amount of calendar time I spent on this was 4.5 months from the time I first sent an email to somebody saying, hey, can I use your workshop for this project I might want to do? And then making all the schematics, doing all the everything from that time to actually being able to play on the thing. Or actually, sorry, that was time to being able to play on it was about 4 months. Then to get the last piece on and call it completely finished was 4.5. So this cost me a lot of money and a lot of time. So I'm glad that I did it, but oh boy, was it costly. So possible cost savings. I mentioned the triangle bracket mounts, those complicated bracket things that would cost $960 altogether for the 32 of them. I think those would be a good candidate for 3D printing, possibly. Now, I don't know much about 3D printing, but I know enough about it to be pretty sure you could manufacture those pieces much, much more cheaply, and they would do just as well. You know, it's nice to have them be metal, but plastic would probably work just as well. The only thing I would wonder is about the threading for the triangle bracket screws that go into them. Like, I don't know if you would have to use threaded inserts and put them into the plastic there, or if you can 3D print screw threads. I assume it's not that precise, but I don't actually know. Or if you could just, like, cut it yourself with a tap, if the material is strong enough for that. I don't know. I just don't know enough about 3D printing, but I'm pretty sure you could make that a lot cheaper. Or you could just cut out some wooden triangles and put some threaded inserts into them, and they would probably also work. But yeah, that would be the biggest thing to save some money. Other than that, just leave out some of the metal finish. Well, no, I mean, the sheet metal didn't cost much. That's more of a time saving than anything. Yeah, I'm not sure where else you would save the money. Just order your stuff all at once so you save on shipping. Maybe somehow get the bars from another source, because like the forwarding fee and wire transfer stuff and everything from Arcade Spare Parts was substantial. And apparently you can't order those anymore because they're out of stock, so you'd have to get them somewhere else anyway. But yeah, somehow I'm sure that could be done cheaper. Anyway, so I have some special thanks for this project. People I haven't mentioned too much earlier that gave me a huge amount of help with this. So Riptide's DDR Metal Pad Guide on YouTube was kind of the first thing that I started in. It's kind of a similar format to this series, where a guy builds a metal pad for DDR from scratch, basically. He does it a little differently from what I did. He was only building one. He wasn't using official parts or anything. It was all just totally from scratch. Definitely a lower cost thing, but also lower final quality. So if you're going for low cost, that would be a good place to look, I think. Hackmycab.com had a lot of extremely helpful information on it. I got info about LEDs and about aero panels and decals and a bunch of other stuff. It's basically recording somebody's experience taking a DDR cabinet and converting it for in the groove and making a bunch of different modifications to it. It's really useful stuff. That's also my inspiration for the website that I want to put up for this project eventually. Hopefully that'll happen sometime soon. The Rhythm Arcade Wiki, which I just tried to visit today, and apparently the domain has expired, so I guess you can't get to that anymore, so go on archive.org or something to get to it. But they had some real good information about sensors. That was where I found the exact part number for the Pump It Up sensor connector, which was a crucial piece of information I needed to be able to order those pieces and actually connect to them, because I could not find that anywhere else. I will put a link to that part here since the wiki is down. And I guess that information doesn't exist on the internet right at the moment, unless you go through archive.org or get it somewhere else. But anyway, since that was the one most crucial piece of information I needed, I'll share it here. Kreider Machine Shop, they deserve special thanks because they did an amazing job with what I needed. It cost a lot of money, but still, they did a really good job with it. My family friends who had tools that they let me use for this project, they were extremely helpful, very accommodating. They definitely deserve some special thanks for this. And SavePoint in Westminster, Maryland. This is the arcade that I went to get a whole bunch of photos and measurements of a real DDR machine, since I have none around me. It was like a 2.5-hour drive from here to get there. But yeah, once I got there, I introduced myself, told my story, and the staff there was very helpful and let me play around in an arcade that was otherwise closed with a DDR machine. took off an aero panel and looked inside a little bit, so that was also pretty crucial to this project, so I appreciate that very much. Future stuff for this project. I've mentioned the website I'm going to get up for it several times. That will happen. I'll make it happen. I'm probably going to be a little bit slow about it. I'll have all the schematics, hopefully, interactive schematics, download SVG, however you like them, photos of all these parts and links to where you can buy them, all sorts of good stuff like that. So for anybody else who wants to attempt this project or something similar, I'll have as much reference as I can put up there. I'd like to share this with the few remaining active dance game forums that are around. Aaron in Japan, Xenius I Vanisher are the two that come to mind. There might be a few others. I was on ITG Freak back in the day, DDR Freak before that, but those have long since gone away, which is kind of a shame. But yeah, I'd like to get this out to more people so they can see it, because I think it's a pretty cool thing, and I know there is an active community still who would be interested in this sort of thing, so just need to get it to the right people. Eventually, I want to build a matching arcade cabinet for this, because this is just the pads. They have a USB interface on them, which just connects to a computer, which I have hooked up to my TV and stuff. But it'd be nicer if there were an actual arcade cabinet to hook these to, so for better authenticity. But that's the other big half of this project, so another $3,500 and 4.5 months of work probably to get that one done. It would also be nice to have a pump it up version of this. So 5-panel layout, the opposite of the one that I did there, so corners and center. There's kind of less sort of PC support for Pump It Up. Like, there's an official PC version of In the Groove, and there's Stepmania. You could use a Pump It Up pad with Stepmania, but like most people who play Pump It Up, you do it on real arcade machines. I'd almost rather just get one of those. But at the same time, it would be nice to have a custom USB pad that I could do other stuff with, do custom songs with it for 5-panel stuff. I don't know. But I don't exactly want to repeat this exact same process again, at least not right now. Maybe someday, if I really want a 5-panel pad, I could do that. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this building series. If you are interested in doing this project, I hope it's helped you, and please get in touch with me if you have any questions or I can help you with anything about it. I'd love to see more people build their own dance pads, because I'd like to see more dance games in the world. It's a great thing that I think should be shared with a lot of people, and it's kind of a shame that it's not exactly dying, but it's less active than it used to be, and I'd love for it to stick around in the long term, because I think it's a great thing. It's a lot of fun. It's really good exercise. It's a very good way to sort of bridge the gap between sedentary video games and actually doing something active. Anyway, so it means a lot to me. And yeah, thanks for watching this series. Thanks for all your support, and I will see you later.